At the peak of the madness, a single flower bulb could be worth more than a grand house on the finest canal in Amsterdam. One bulb of a tulip, a plant that a few decades earlier had been almost unknown in Europe. People traded away savings and fortunes for the promise of a flower, and then, one winter day, the whole thing collapsed. This is the story of the first great financial bubble in history, and it teaches a lesson the human race has never quite managed to learn. We left off with the birth of the stock market, a brilliant machine for pricing things through the judgment of a crowd. But we ended on a warning. When a price is whatever people are willing to pay, a crowd can lose its mind. In the Dutch Republic of the 1630s, that is exactly what happened, and the object of the madness was the tulip. The tulip had arrived in Europe from the Ottoman lands, and the Dutch fell in love with it. Its bold colors were unlike anything in European gardens, and the most prized tulips had dramatic flame-like patterns streaking their petals. These rare varieties became a symbol of wealth and status. To own them was to show you had arrived. At first, this was simply a trade for luxury. Wealthy enthusiasts paid high prices for rare bulbs, the way people pay for fine art. That was reasonable enough, but then something shifted. People began buying bulbs not because they wanted the flowers, but because they believed the price would keep rising and they could sell later for a profit. And this is the exact moment a healthy market tips into a bubble, a pattern that repeats through all of financial history. A bubble forms when people stop valuing a thing for what it is and start buying it only because its price is going up. They are not buying a flower. They are buying the expectation that someone else will pay even more tomorrow. As prices soared, the frenzy spread beyond the wealthy. According to popular accounts, people from many walks of life were swept in. Contracts changed hands again and again, often without a single bulb ever moving, or even existing yet, as the flowers lay dormant in the ground. People traded slips of paper, promises to buy bulbs at dizzying prices. A single sought-after bulb might sell for many times the yearly income of a skilled worker. This reveals the strange engine at the heart of every bubble, sometimes called the greater fool theory. You might know deep down that the price you are paying is insane, but it does not matter as long as you believe there is a greater fool who will buy it from you for even more. The bubble keeps inflating, not because anyone truly believes a flower is worth a fortune, but because everyone believes they can sell it in time. But there is always a limit, there is always a last fool. And in February of 1637, the buyers simply vanished. At a routine bulb auction for the first time, there were no bids. A flicker of doubt became a wave of panic. If no one will buy, then the bulb in my hand is worth nothing. Everyone rushed to sell at once, and the price of tulips collapsed almost overnight to a tiny fraction of its peak. The dream evaporated. Now, here is where history is often exaggerated and where the truth matters. The popular legend says Tulip Mania ruined the entire Dutch economy, but careful modern historians have shown this is largely a myth, a moral tale retold over the centuries. In reality, the crash mostly hurt a limited circle of traders and speculators. Many of the wild contracts were quietly settled or cancelled, and the broader Dutch economy, one of the strongest in the world, carried on without lasting damage. So we must be honest. Tulip Mania was not the apocalypse it is sometimes painted as, but it stands as the first clear documented example of a speculative bubble, a pattern that would return again and again in far more dangerous forms. The tulip taught us the shape of financial madness. Something catches the public eye, prices rise, rising prices attract more buyers, greed overpowers reason, the price soars into fantasy, and then confidence cracks and the whole thing collapses in a rush for the exits. From tulips to companies to houses, this pattern has echoed across 4 centuries. The tulip was, in the end, a small and almost gentle lesson, a rehearsal, because the same madness was about to return. But next time it would not be attached to a harmless flower. It would be attached to giant companies, national economies, and the fortunes of kings. The bubbles were about to get catastrophic. But before the great crashes, humanity was also learning to do the opposite of reckless gambling, to carefully measure risk and to share it in a London coffee house that would give birth to modern insurance. And that is where we go next. If you're enjoying the journey, subscribe and turn on notifications. New episodes drop almost every day. Leave a like and jump into the comments. That's where the best discussions happen.